Can we hurry up and get to training camp so all the rumors, all the reports can come to an end? That plus a whole lot more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 17th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're giving us a look on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show has grown in a major way, over 14,000 subscriptions. That's because of you, Raider Nation, your support. And, of course, my man Ari does a great job each and every day making sure we're on YouTube, we're looking good, and we're sounding good. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can check me out on Twitter as well, as many of you do, at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. We've got so much feedback off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, really based off of Tuesday's show, as a matter of fact, right? A lot of conversation about 65 years of Raider football and how you became a Raider fan, when you became a Raider fan, how long you've been a member of Raider Nation. A lot of feedback in segment number 3. We're not going to get to all the calls and texts. I guarantee that. We'll get as many in as possible. We'll try to make sure we get as much in throughout the course of the week, but we'll do our best to get those calls and texts coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll talk about the Raiders' Davante Adams and how he is the subject of so much conversation from New York when it comes to Boomer Esiason at WFAN to Randy Moss, the Hall of Famer who at one point claimed to be a Raider. I never acknowledged him as a Raider because, well, we all know how it went down with Randy Moss. We say once a Raider, always a Raider, but when Randy said I was never a Raider, as far as I'm concerned, he was never a Raider. But there's so much going on around in the world of sports and the conversation around Davante Adams and is he going to stay, is he going to go? We'll talk about that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day, and we'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs winded down, and of course the finals got wrapped up when it came to the NHL and the NBA, we all started to think, what are we going to do with sports? Well, of course, Major League Baseball's going on. We just saw the All-Star game get wrapped up. The AL won again. We saw the Home Run Derby. Of course, the WNBA, they're in action as well. They're taking a break as they get ready for the Paris Olympics. So there's a lot going on, and all summer long, FanDuel is going to hook up all customers with boosts or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'll tell you more about them later on in the show, but the big news of the day across the NFL that rolled out on Tuesday was the fact that the 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk actually requested a trade. Now, this is not something that came to me as a surprise when I found out early on Tuesday morning. It was something that was kind of like, okay, that's the formality. That's something that we all expected at some point since he's been trying to jockey for a new contract ever since the Super Bowl got wrapped up and the 49ers lost to the Chiefs right here in Las Vegas in Allegiant Stadium. He had put out the tweet on social media. His girl put out the tweet. Maybe it's time to make our way back to Las Vegas since he's got a relationship with Antonio Pierce going back to Arizona State. And the 49ers don't look like that they have any interest in trading him. Matter of fact, NFL Network tweeted out that Brandon Ayuk has requested a trade from the 49ers. Again, it was first reported by NFL Network. And then Adam Schefter from ESPN said, teams have reached out and spoken to the 49ers and been told the 49ers have no intention of trading disgruntled wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, who officially has requested a trade. The 49ers open training camp next week. That's from Adam Schefter from ESPN. And that's the whole understanding that I've had the whole time that this has been going on, that the 49ers know this is the last year of his deal. He's only going to make $14 million. They went out and drafted Ricky Pearsall, so they're pretty comfortable, I think, with their replacement of Brandon Ayuk when this year is over. I think they're going to try to make a run. And look, he's a hell of a wide receiver. He averages 17 yards a catch. He's a big-time difference maker, but I don't think that the 49ers are going to really entertain him being paid like a top wide receiver around $30 million a year. He wants to get that Amon-Ra St. Brown deal. He wants to get that Tyreek Hill type money. He wants to get that Davante Adams type money, and I don't think that that's going to happen. But it did make me think, if the 49ers were to entertain that, would there be a team, because I don't think that they'd trade him to a team in the NFC for obvious reasons, 49ers being an NFC team. I do think they'd trade him to a team in the AFC. Would a team in the AFC West make sense? Would they make a move for him? So, of course, I thought about the Denver Broncos. Cortland Sutton's there. He's the veteran wide receiver. They drafted Troy Franklin from Oregon. He's Bo Nix's college teammate, so that's obviously going to make Bo Nix more comfortable. Marvin Mims Jr. is there. He's a hell of a wide receiver. Josh Reynolds, he's been there in the league for about 7 years, not necessarily in Denver, but in the league for about 7 years. And then Lil Jordan Humphrey, who comes from the University of Texas. So when I look at their wide receiver core, I say, would Brandon Ayuk be an upgrade? Sure. I think he could run with Cortland Sutton and Troy Franklin, and Marvin Mims would be a good, addition. He'd probably make Josh Reynolds and Lil Jordan Humphrey expendable. But again, he's a guy that averages 17 yards per catch. So I could see Denver making a move for him and Sean Payton trying to bring in a new weapon for their young quarterback, Bo Nix. So, I kind of take a look and say, well, pay attention to Denver and see what they do. Of course, Sean Payton's trying to get things turned around quick, fast, and in a hurry. Then I look at the Chargers, led by Jim Harbaugh. They got DJ Chark. They've got the second-year guy, Quentin Johnston, out of TCU. He's my guy. I actually covered him in high school at Temple High School in Texas. He's a hell of a dude, but he had struggles his rookie year, so he's got a lot to prove. He's a young guy. Ladd McConkey, they just drafted him out of Georgia. They drafted Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, in the 7th round out of UFC. I don't know why he dropped so much, but he's there. I can see the Chargers, especially after moving on from Keenan Allen. I can see the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh saying, yeah, you know what? That's the guy that I want to add to the mix. So I'm actually really paying attention to the Chargers to see if they try to put a full court press on the 49ers. Again, I'd be surprised and shocked if they actually do go out of their way and decide to trade him before they let him play out this year. I think that they have no problem with letting him play out the year and then go ahead and either letting him walk and get a compensatory pick or, even putting the franchise tag on him with all intentions of trading him. I would not be shocked if San Francisco did that, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers decided, yeah, that could be a guy we add to the mix. So I'll pay attention to that. Obviously, he wants to get a big contract, and the Chargers don't have that money right now, but he's got a year left on his deal. He's at $14 million this year before he hits free agency. And, on the same level of that, how about the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs are always looking for another weapon, and I could see them, only because they're in a position that they're in right now, where they're back-to-back Super Bowl champs trying to go for a three-peat. I could see them making a trade for him, even though I know the asking price is going to be a 1. I don't think he gets a 1. It'll probably be at least a second, maybe even a third that they can get for him. Maybe even like the Raiders did when they traded for AB. What was it, a 3rd and a 5th round pick? I could see the Chiefs trying to play hardball and say, look, we're not going to give you a 1st round pick. We'll give you a 3rd and 5th round pick. And again, I don't think San Francisco's going to do it, but I can see the Chiefs at least inquiring. They've got Rashee Rice. He's got a suspension incoming for everything that he's been dealing with through the offseason. Hollywood Brown, very inconsistent, even though he's a guy that can stretch the field. They drafted Xavier Worthy out of Texas. He's also a speedster, but he's inconsistent with his hands. McCole Hardman, he never really materialized into the guy that he was supposed to be. Sky Moore is very hit or miss. Kadarius Toney is somewhat of a knucklehead. So, again, there's another location. I can see 2 spots in the AFC West that would be very interested in one Brandon Ayuk from the San Francisco 49ers. That's the Chargers and the Chiefs. And honestly, I can see the Chiefs making a move for him and then saying, yeah, we'll give him a contract extension, making that move, having him for a 1-year run, and then letting him walk. Because they're very comfortable with where they're at. They feel like that guy, Patrick Mahomes, could make any wide receiver a really good wide receiver. And hell, they won the Super Bowl last season, and all we all talked about was they don't have any weapons. So I could see those teams making some moves. I don't know if Denver is going to have enough ammunition to go ahead and make it happen, but wouldn't be surprised if they were at least curious about what he can do to provide another weapon for Bo Nix. But, you just look at those 3 teams. Of course, I look at the Raiders, and I don't see any way that they make a move, even though Antonio Pierce has a relationship with Brandon Ayuk. The only way I could see that happening is if they were to move on from Davante Adams, and I don't see that happening at all. But there's plenty of others out there that do think Davante Adams could be on the move, including Boomer Esiason from WFAN in New York, covers the Jets like a glove. We'll actually get into the conversation about Davante Adams coming up in segment number 2 and why I think it's really a whole lot of nothing and really just a lot of folks trying to get to training camp so they can actually talk about football activities. We'll do that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. We'll get to that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. And anyone who's listened to me for any amount of time knows that I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. It doesn't really matter what it is that's on TV. I'm always focused in on sports. And right now, of course, sports aren't booming like they were when the NBA was in full throttle. And of course, the NHL was going on. It's a little bit of a lull. You've got baseball. And of course, that was on break for the All-Star break. You got the WNBA, and they're taking a break for the Paris Olympics. And, there's just some minor things here and there. USA basketball, summer leagues going on. But it's just not sporting like it used to sport. But that does not matter, because FanDuel has got you covered. They let me keep sports going whenever I want. All I got to do is open up the app, dream up any kind of bet I want, any type of mood I'm in, and boom, they make it happen. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So go to FanDuel.com, start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Segment number 1 talked about Brandon Ayuk and the trade request that he made on Tuesday, wanting to get up out of San Francisco and go anywhere that's willing to pay him. More than likely, if there's any team that really makes a move for him realistically, it might be the Commanders, because he's got a relationship with Jaden Daniels, and maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even though trading him to an NFC team like Washington would be a surprise to me, I just don't think San Francisco would do that. But if they gave him an offer that they couldn't refuse, maybe that could happen. Well, let's bring it back home and let's talk about Davante Adams. And off top, I feel like this is a whole lot of nothing. Right? I mean, it's the dog days of summer. Training camp's right around the corner. We know the Browns and the Texans, they start training camp this week because they play in the Hall of Fame game. There are some teams that have their rookies report this week, but the Silver and Black, they don't report till next week, right? Looking forward to training camp then. The whole rest of the league will be going then, and there'll actually be football activities. So right now, I believe any conversation that you hear about a potential trade of Davante Adams is just trying to get to the finish line. Like, man, we're running this race, we're almost there. We need one more headline to get us there. Oh, Davante Adams doesn't want to be with the Raiders, and he wants to go and play with his college team, or not his college teammate, but his longtime quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, in New York. And of course, this all comes from the conversation and it wasn't even really a conversation, it was just a couple comments that Aaron Rodgers made on the golf course in Lake Tahoe to Vegas Sports Today, as a matter of fact, Mike Dixon and company, when they were asking him about Luke Getsy, and he volunteered that not only does he love Luke Getsy, but he loves Davante Adams and can't wait to play with him again. That little quick, small interaction and comment about Davante Adams has basically set off a wildfire about, oh, he's going to get up out of Las Vegas. He doesn't want to be there. That plus everything that you've been seeing, if you've been following the Netflix special Receiver, all the frustration you saw from Davante in 2023. Well, everyone's putting things together, including WFAN, former longtime quarterback in the NFL, Boomer Esiason, who was on the radio. And this is not yesterday, but this was on Monday. He was talking about the potential of a Davante Adams trade to the Jets, and basically starts off talking about what penalty and what kind of a hit it would take to the Raiders if they traded Davante Adams right now, and why he thinks it'll come up sooner rather than later. Here's Boomer Esiason. Check it out.
So the dead cap for the Raiders this year is $40 million.
If they traded him.
Yeah.
No.
So somehow they would have to work this out. I'm hearing that this is going to happen, if it does happen, somewhere in late August, early September.
Really?
Yeah, and the cap hit for him is $25 million.
Why would it take that long?
I'm not sure about why it would take that long, but Davante's never going to come out publicly and say, I want to leave the Raiders. But you do hear in this wide receiver program where he does this, I got to get out of here before I get killed. I mean, he says that. And that leads you to believe, leads the viewer to believe that he wants out of Oakland. But I don't see him saying that publicly.
So there's Boomer Esiason. You hear what he said right there. Late August, early September. Thinks that the dead cap hit on the trade with Davante Adams would be $25 million. But that's all speculation. He also called the Raiders Oakland. Right? And I get it, right? The Raiders, long-time Oakland, long-time L.A., but, man, they've been in Vegas now 5 years. If you can't figure out that it's the Vegas Raiders and not the Oakland Raiders, then, there's that. But you heard what he said. You heard his explanations. I'm not really buying anything into that. I mean, he's really basing his thoughts off of what he saw on receiver, and he saw the frustrations from Davante Adams. And, it's funny because it's almost like you've got to defend this off. As I'm doing national shows on ESPN, and I've been on Carlin vs. Joe the past couple of days, everyone's like, Q, what's up with Davante Adams? When is he going to ask for a trade? What's wrong? Is he not happy there? And I'm like, no, he is. He's really happy there. And I've said this before. We've done shows about it. We've talked about it here on the podcast, that it would take the Raiders really playing bad, especially to start the season. And as we talked about getting into the bye week, it would take them really playing really bad before Davante Adams were to ask for a trade, in my opinion. I don't think that he's going to ask for any kind of trade, and I don't think the Raiders have any kind of interest in trading him as long as they feel like that he can still help contribute to the team. And obviously, as one of the best wide receivers in the league, he can definitely do that. I mean, the Raiders haven't even got to training camp, and there's already teams across the league that is trying to trade him off. At least I was watching Get Up on ESPN, and at least I heard some sense of intelligence from Jeff Darlington, who's a big-time NFL insider, and he was talking about the possibility of Adams going to the Jets based off of what Aaron Rodgers had to say at the golf tournament. This is what Darlington had to say.
The reality is it's just not really in the cards right now. You know, we can go through all the scenarios that would make it be in the cards, but right now it's not at all. You know, it's like one of these things where he's at a golf tournament. Aaron Rodgers, like, we want to give him a little bit of a leash when it comes to being playful about things, but at the same time, this is the same guy who has been very critical of the media attention by saying things like we need to keep all of the distractions away from this team. This a player who missed minicamp due to an unexcused absence, and now talking about players that are not on his team. So it's a fine line, of course, about, you know, whether to be overly critical about a playful comment or whether to wonder if, in fact, this is one more thing to add to the fire.
So you heard Jeff right there talking about it's just not going to happen, right? It's not something to even talk about right now. This is how far it's gone, and really why I'm hoping that training camp hurries up and gets here so there could be another storyline to talk about besides Davante Adams and the potential of him being traded to the New York Jets. His agents actually had to put a statement out on Tuesday. Agents Kenny Chapman and Frank Bauer, regarding the recent trade talks surrounding their client, they said this is baseless, unfounded speculation. Davante is expected to be with the Raiders as there has been absolutely no trade talk, period. That's again from his agents, Kenny Chapman and Frank Bauer. Adam Schefter tweeted that out on Tuesday. And one, I didn't think that his agents even needed to come out and say that, because I feel like that it was a lot of speculation. It was absolutely no trade talk. The Raiders definitely want Davante Adams. He wanted Antonio Pierce. Now he's got Antonio Pierce. You think he's going to say, okay, hire that guy to be the full-time head coach, and now I want out? That's not it. And Davante Adams wants to win with the Raiders. Davante Adams, make no mistake about it, loves being in Las Vegas. Davante Adams loves the fact that his family is right here near Las Vegas and come see him play each and every game if they want to. Davante Adams does not want out at all. He wants to help this team turn things around. Now, I will say, as I mentioned before, if the team starts out really bad and they get into the bye week, which is week 10, and they're at like 3 wins, or they're at 2 wins, or maybe 4 wins, and they barely stumbled into that, I could see Davante Adams saying, yeah, you know what, if this isn't going to get any better, maybe we need to make some moves. And remember, the bye week now is week 10. It's November 5th. That's actually the trade deadline, so you've got to make a move by that. But the Raiders will play 9 games. That's why we asked the question. That's why I threw the question out there. What do you think the record needs to be? Because, again, things could go really well, and they could be in the thick of things, and Davante could be feeling good about himself, and maybe Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew or a combination of the two has done some really good things, or it can go the complete opposite way. Again, I don't anticipate that, but you know how football go, right? I mean, anything could happen. Bad bounce here, bad bounce there, a last-second loss here, last-second loss there. You just never know how things could go. So I could see it at the end of the day, but I can't see it now. And like Boomer Esiason said, late August, early September is when he thinks that the move's going to get made. There's no reason for the Raiders to say, yeah, let's go ahead and make that move at that point. They would barely have gotten into their season. They're going to make a move, right? And in August, that's not even the season. That's still training camp. You think they're going to move on from a guy when Antonio Pierce wants to win? The thing about it is, as many people criticize Antonio Pierce for winning games as an interim because they didn't want the Raiders to get a really good draft spot, AP still has a lot to prove. He still has to win games. He's not trying to, get a good draft spot so he can go and draft a quarterback, this, that, and the other. He's trying to win games now. So you think he's going to want to give up one of his best assets for the sake of, well, maybe we can move on and we can lose enough games and we can go get a good draft pick? No, he wants to win, and he wants to win now. So Davante Adams on the team is the best option, but I tell you this now, and I had so many people hit me up, and what do you think about this, Q? Is this going to happen? Are you hearing rumblings about Davante wanting out? No. If Davante wanted out, he would have already said, look, this is not working. He is very open and honest when we talk to him after the games. He does not hold his tongue. He lets it be known how he feels. If you've been watching receiver, he lets it be known how he feels, right? Even to the point where he said he signed off on benching Jimmy G, which is probably something that he didn't need to say. But he put it out there. He's not afraid to say what's on his mind. He's been in the league for a long time, so he's earned that. If he wanted out, if he did not want to be a Raider, guess what, Raider Nation? He would not be a Raider at this stage of the game. He would already be somewhere, whether it's New York or other. He'd be somewhere, and the Raiders would have some kind of draft capital in return. So, again, I don't see anything that would change that unless the Raiders got off to a terrible start, and by the time they hit the bye week, they just looked like they were so far out of it that they were already planning for the draft. Then I could see the Raiders making a move out of respect for Davante, so he doesn't have to sit there on a ship that's sinking, as opposed to being able to be on a team that may have an opportunity to make a run. That's the only way I see Davante trying to get up out of there, or the Raiders even considering moving Davante. So it's just so funny. There's so much conversation. It feels like there's a lot of folks that are bored right now, and a lot of folks that are looking for headlines and trying to create headlines. I've said it many, many moons ago when I first started this podcast back after the 2017 season. All the headlines are sexier when the Raiders are involved in it. It's just that simple. There's always rumors about the Raiders want to draft this guy, or they want to sign this guy, or they're going to trade for this guy, or they're about to trade this guy. Anytime you add the Raiders' name to a rumor or a report or a conversation, it gets a lot sexier. And the media knows that. Everyone knows that. And so they continue to try to burn that, that candle. And it's not working. Like, the math ain't mathing on that problem. So nothing to see here as far as I'm concerned. If there's anything to see, it probably won't be till much later in the season, closer to the bye week, which, again, the trade deadline date is November 5th, which just happens to be that bye week of the Raiders, week 10. But that's what I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Just want to touch on all these crazy reports about Davante Adams and if he's going to be traded and if he's not. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts are next at 707-654-4693. It's coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find qualified professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. But LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. They constantly are finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and even quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. That's million with an M. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. A lot of subjects are touched on these comments today, these calls and texts. We'll go ahead and get into them as quickly as possible. We'll start things off with Northwest Raider. He's calling to talk about how he became a Raiders fan and mentions an ESPY nominee and why. Here he is, Northwest Raider.
Gee, what's up? This is Northwest Raider. It's my first time calling. Just want to say, talk about becoming a Raider fan. For me, it was picking up Tecmo Bowl when I was a kid and playing as Bo Jackson on the Raiders was unstoppable. And the first time watching the game, I was looking for Bo Jackson and just seeing, like, just poetry in motion. And after that, it was a lock. You know, I was born in the 80s, so I was still a little kid when I saw that, and it was a wrap. And then go back to your ESPYs. Don't want to talk about all of them, just talk about one of them. Jack Jones, when he picks off Mahomes and he stares him down to the pick 6. Man, that is the most Raider thing I've seen in years. Just unafraid of the MVP, not Cameron. Just looking at him and telling him, like, ain't nothing to me. So, man, that was Raiders all day, old school days, just that attitude, the mentality. Anyway, man, that's all I got to say. Keep it quick. I'll call again. Love what you do, man. Keep doing it. Raiders.
Northwest, thanks so much for the call. Thanks for being a new booty caller, first-time guy. And how cool is that? Tecmo Bowl, right? We all played that game, didn't we? That was the game we played before Madden. And that outside run with Bo, that was ridiculous. There was no stopping that run. That was the run where you go outside, you run all the way up to the goal line, then you run the base of the goal line, then you run all the way back to your goal line, then you run the base of that goal line, then go back up the other side, and nobody could stop you. Nobody at all could stop you. So, yeah, that game was just ridiculous. Matter of fact, it went a step further than ridiculous. It went to ridiculous, right? A whole nother step with a D. As far as your SB, Jack Jones, and that pick six on Christmas, that was pretty dope, right? The fact that Jack Jones had 2 interceptions, 2 pick sixes was great. But when he talked that trash to Mahomes on his way to the end zone, that was SB worthy, just watching that video. There's no doubt. Northwest Raider, thanks so much for that call. Appreciate you. Hope to hear from you again. Up next, got a text from the 206. Raiders SBs, MVP Max Crosby, most improved Malcolm Kuntz, breakout player Zamir White, favorite newcomer Antonio Pierce, and Al Davis Award Charles Woodson. Then he said the best play, Amik Robertson's interception versus Green Bay. Honorable mentions, Marcus Peters pick 6 versus Detroit, Crosby sack safety versus New England, and Josh Jacobs long TD run versus Kansas City. That's a text from the 206, giving some SB awards out, Raiders style. That was a fantastic text. Right? Crosby is no doubter MVP, most improved Malcolm Kuntz. Yep. Zamir White needs to be a breakout player this year. If he could be a breakout player, the Raiders are in a good position. Favorite newcomer, Antonio Pierce. I think a lot of folks are feeling that way about the head coach. And then Charles Woodson, no-brainer. I forgot about Amik Robertson's interception by the goal line. That was a play to seal the deal on Monday Night Football. That was fantastic. That was before Jordan Love really took off and became that guy because, man, he's a hell of a player now. Marcus Peters, his one big highlight was the pick 6 against Detroit. They lost that game, and he didn't last for the team much longer after that. Crosby sack safety against the Patriots. That was a good one. And then Josh Jacobs, long touchdown run versus Kansas City. Lots of good stuff there. Appreciate the text from the 206. Next time, let me know your name so I don't have to talk about your area code. I can actually shout out your name, but thanks so much for that. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Bad Luck Raider in the 559, calling to talk about the stability at the Raiders head coaching position and front office. Also wants to talk about the Raiders SBs we gave out last week. Had an addition he wanted to make sure to mention. Here he is, Bad Luck Raider in the 559.
What's going on, Q? This is Bad Luck Ray out in the Central Valley, 559 area. Really like what you said about having that stability at the head coaching and, in the front office, right? Right now, I don't even think it's a question anymore, man. Keep Pierce signing for an extended contract because, and also all the coaches that we hired along with them. The experience, man. I mean, and you mentioned it before. He's brought in guys that know what they're doing, guys that have pedigree behind them, right? So I think that it would be pretty dope if you were to, let us know, how much experience is there, tally up all those years and all that. I'm sure I could do it, but, a little busy. So anyhow, the other thing I would say, man, is, so great point on that. When it comes to all the MVPs and, newcomers, all that good stuff, I think you're spot on all of them. I mean, I don't know where to fit this guy, but I do believe Spillane was a huge addition for us, man. I think that guy, I mean, me and my girl's a Raider fan now too, and, I finally convinced her. But anyhow, Spillane was one of our favorite freaking players, man, just because this guy was just everywhere. He had a couple picks. I mean, he was just making plays. I felt like he was all over the field. I mean, of course, you had all the other big plays by the other guys. Jack Jones, man, unbelievable how we got that guy. I still, think that he got a little bit of proof to us. Like, yeah, he did great last year. I mean, and everybody would say, but it's all about consistency. You said it billions of times before. So I think that's where we're at with him. the rookies giving those, newcomers, I get it, but I think we got to kind of let it play out. So many players come into the league that we just don't see play the way that they were playing in college. When you get to that whole different level of competition, it's pretty intense, right? So I hope these guys shine. I really do have faith in all of them, but I also like to keep my feet on the ground. So I think, you, like I said, you were spot on all of that, man. And I appreciate all you do, man. Go Raiders. And, hopefully this season we live up to all of our hype. So again, man, thanks again for all you do, Q. Peace.
Thanks so much for the call. Bad luck. And yeah, I do think the stability at the head coaching job and front office is critical. But with that being said, you have to wait and let them earn it. I think that year 3 would be maybe the starting point for a contract extension. You just can't be so quick to roll them out, right? After 1 year or just after being an interim coach. I mean, look, AP got the head coaching job off of what he did as an interim. He's got to go out and earn it now. The Raiders need to be a winning team this year. They need to be competing for the playoffs. They need at the very least to be a playoff team next year, even though I think they should be a playoff team this year. And then you might even have to see what they look like in year 3. I mean, think about this. The Raiders gave Jack Del Rio a contract extension really quickly, right? In his second year with the team, 2016, they went 12-4. And then he signed an extension that offseason. That was February 10th, 2017. He signed a contract extension, and he fired himself or got fired following the 2017 season. After that game with the Chargers, that last week of the season, after the game was over, he went to the podium and said, I've been told that I've been relieved of my duties, and that's when John Gruden came in. So Mark Davis extended Del Rio, and he coached 1 year, and he was gone. So you just got to be really careful with giving out contract extensions. Make sure that you got it right. Make sure that these guys have earned it, and they're going to be around for the long haul. Even though that's super important, they've got to go ahead and earn it. You just don't want to roll out an extension before these guys earn it, because you never know what will happen after that. As far as your breakout player, Robert Spillane is a great name. Great name to add to the mix. I mean, we talked about him when he signed as a free agent. He's a guy that could stop the run, but he was going to be a liability in coverage, and he was everything but a liability. He was fantastic. He could easily be in that breakout player category. I like that. I think that was a really good addition. We've heard a couple of shout-outs to Robert Spillane. Thanks so much for that, Bad Luck Raider. Definitely appreciate you. Got one more text as we close out the show. This one's a text from Mr. OZ, the infamous voice of Raider Nation. It's a hell of a title right there. It says, Q, Raider Brett present. Many moons of listening, first-time texter. You ask why and when of your Raider fandom? My dad, the Raider. He was born in 1947. Those doggone hometown Saints didn't come around till 67. He, as a rebel-hearted renegade, staked his claim on those Pirates in Oakland. Naturally, like you say, I had no choice but to follow. He passed from complications from Agent Orange late in 85. I was only 4. I never got to talk to him man-to-man. That's my biggest regret in life. Robbed again to know the man everyone says I'm the spirit and image of. I've been fighting these Saints fans my whole 43-year existence. Make every Raider and Saint game. The last one led by McDaniels still has me very, very upset. It's in my soul, stamped on my rebel heart. I want nothing more to celebrate a Raider Super Bowl victory and run a champ T-shirt and bandana to my dad's grave and scream, "We did it, Pop." It's how I keep my dad going. Keep towing the lead, all things Raiders and Raiders. That's, again, a hell of a text right there from Mr. OZ, the infamous voice of Raider Nation. Fantastic text, man. Fantastic text. And, boy, what a year. What a year to bring that up. The Raiders play the Saints the second week of this closing out the season, right? The second week to the end of the season in 2024. Actually, it'd be calendar year 2025. And then the Super Bowl's in New Orleans. How awesome would that be? And I don't want to get too excited and fired up and act like I'm, projecting anything. And I don't want to blow smoke up your backside. I'm not that dude. But, man, could you imagine if the Raiders end up in New Orleans that second week to the last week of the season, go out there and beat the Saints, and then somehow find a way to get back to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, and they win that? I mean, that would make your whole Raider fandom just come full circle. And somewhere up in heaven, your pops would be looking down at you super happy. You'd be super fired up. Like you said, you roll that, that champ banner to your dad's grave and let him know that the Raiders did it. That would be a full circle moment. That would be amazing. Hey, look, the stars align at sometimes. So thanks so much for that. That's a fantastic story. And keep fighting that good fight like you've done your 43 years of living and, of course, being a member of Raider Nation. Think about that. Raiders are celebrating 65 years of existence. You're celebrating 43 years of Raider fandom. Not too bad, my man. Not too bad. Thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Thanks for sharing your story. Got a call from Enzo Raider in the DMV. You know what? We can get this one in. This is a short call. We'll do this one as well. Enzo Raider in the DMV. Sorry, Ari, it's a little bit long, I know. He's got a real quick call on how he became a Raiders fan, and trust and believe the running backs has something to do with how Enzo is now bleeding silver and black. Here he is, Enzo Raider in the DMV.
Q, love what you do. It's Enzo from the DMV. Just calling to talk about how I became a Raiders fan. Having grown up in D.C., I watched The Run by Marcus. And then there was a man, the myth, the legend, named Bo Vincent Jackson. And that made me a complete and utter fan of the Raiders. Tecmo Bowl helped as well, but I just wanted to let you know those are mine. So hope all is well. Keep doing your job. You're killing it. Just win, baby.
Thank you, brother, for the call. Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson, Tecmo Bowl. You can't really ask too much more. How awesome would it have been if Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson played side by side, 1-2 punch for years to come? That would have been fantastic. But things that worked out great, man, that would have been a 1-2 punch that nobody could have stopped. But two great running backs to look up to. And, of course, Tecmo Bowl, that takes us back well before Madden. Tecmo Bowl was that game. Enzo, thanks for the call. Definitely appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. Of course, we'll jump back into more calls and texts coming up tomorrow. We'll have more news and notes. There'll be plenty of conversation, and hopefully we won't have any more conversation about Davante Adams and if they will not trade him to the Jets or any other team for that matter. But we'll do that coming up tomorrow for Thursday's show. We're trucking through another week, and sooner rather than later, we'll be talking about training camp down in Costa Mesa. So until then, thanks again for making the Locked On Raiders podcast your first listen every day. You want to get caught up on the other teams on the schedule, all you got to do is tune into all the other shows that we've got on the Locked On Podcast Network. All 32 teams are represented, and we've got a total of over 200 shows across the network, different sports, different hosts. I think you really find them enjoyable, from college football, basketball, MLB, hockey, draft shows, WNBA, and a whole lot more, even some city-specific shows. The Locked On Podcast Network really has got it covered. Of course, it's your team every day. And until Thursday, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.